The ocean remembers everything except the night it swallowed the Aurelia. That's the first thing people say when the story comes up. Whispered in bars near forgotten ports, muttered by fishermen who still refuse to say. Past the coordinates offered as a warning to the young sailors who laugh too easily. But it begins long before the storm, long before the silence, long before the sea erased an entire warship as if wiping chalk from a board. It begins with the moment the Aurelia disobeyed the ocean. The ship moved like a steel beast, its engines humming with the confidence of a vessel that had never once lost a battle. It was the pride of its fleet, sleek, heavily armored, equipped with experimental sonar arrays no other ship in the world had tested yet. Men swore the Aurelia sounded different, like it was alive, like its metal ribs vibrated with some inner pulse. But on the night that would define it forever, the Aurelia crossed into waters no one had permission to enter. Not because of territorial claims, not because of mines or political tension. No, the region was simply wrong, empty on every map, avoided by every captain with a shred of instinct. A place sailors had nicknamed the Stillwater Corridor, because the sea there behaved like a creature holding its breath. The hook that dragged the Aurelia into its fate came from the sky. At 23:12 hours, radar picked up an anomaly. A perfectly circular distortion hovering above the water, no heat signature, no movement, no sound. It reflected nothing, absorbed everything, and swallowed the signal of every device pointed at it. The crew expected a glitch. What they got was a beckoning. Captain Serian Holt stared at the screen, jaw locked, fingers frozen over the console. He was not a man who frightened easily. 30 years in service, 12 commendations, and a mind that could hold an entire battlefield in place like pieces of a clock. But even he felt the wrongness of the circle on the display. The crew whispered rumors. Earlier that week, dead channels on the radio, pressure shifts that made their ears ring, the sudden absence of gulls following the ship. Captain? His deputy asked. Orders. He should have said retreat. Every instinct screamed it. Instead, Holt said the one word that doomed them, advance. The Aurelia turned toward the anomaly, slicing water, as if approaching the heart of a sleeping giant. The ship moved steadily, but the ocean did not welcome it. The waves flattened, refusing to ripple. The engines dimmed, not malfunctioning but obeying something. Even the wind fell silent, leaving the world disturbingly breathless. Several sailors reported headaches. Others swore the water darkened beneath them, though starboard lights showed calm seas. The medic treated 3 men for disorientation. Holt dismissed it all until 23:41 hours, when the lookout screamed, "Something's rising." The object broke the surface like a whisper, not a splash. A shape too smooth, too symmetrical, too deliberate to be natural. It reflected no moonlight, as if coated in night itself. The pod, if that's even the right word, floated silently, almost waiting. The air around it shimmered as though heated, and suddenly every instrument on the ship died. Electricity vanished. Screens went black. Engines went dead. The great Aurelia, invincible, unstoppable, became a drifting carcass in an instant. And then the sound began. Not a siren, not a rumble, not even a roar. The sailors described it differently. Some heard whispers, others a low hum, others a distant heartbeat. But all agreed on one thing: it was inside their skulls. The noise slithered behind their eyes, scraping against thoughts they never meant to expose. Some men dropped to their knees, clutching their temples. The medic vomited. The helmsman began crying without understanding why. Holt forced himself to stand. "Weapons online manually," he shouted, but no one moved. Not because they were frozen in fear, because something held them. Not physically, not mentally, something beneath both. The pod opened. Light poured out, not white, not blue, but something between color. Like the glow of a deep ocean creature no human should ever see. It pulsed. With each pulse, the Aurelia groaned, metal plates bending microscopically as if something was pulling the ship inward. The crew felt it too, the tug, the pressure, the unseen grip, trying to unmake them piece by piece. "Fire!" Holt screamed, grabbing a manual flare launcher. He fired directly into the pod's light. The flare never reached it. The moment it touched the glow, it dissolved. Not burned, not shattered, erased. Gone as if it had never existed. The crew finally understood the pod wasn't a machine. It was an aperture, a doorway, a mouth. At 2,352 hours, the ocean itself responded. Waves rose around the ship, not violently, but purposefully, encircling the vessel as if forming a cradle. The water lifted the Aurelia, tilting its decks. Men slid toward the railing. One officer was swept overboard, but instead of splashing into the sea, he vanished into the still surface without leaving even a ripple. "Captain," the deputy shouted, voice cracking, "we need to abandon ship." But how do you abandon something the ocean refuses to let go? The hull screeched, bending in ways physics should not allow. The ship shuddered as plates compressed inward. The pod's light intensified, becoming a beacon aimed straight at the center of the deck. Holt shielded his eyes, but the glow filtered through his fingers. Then the visions came, flashes, shapes, images of places not made for human understanding. A city beneath endless black water, towers built from bone-white coral. A creature too large to perceive fully, its outline shifting like a mirage. Its many eyes blinking in asynchronous patterns. A hand a limb reaching from the dark. Holt stumbled, choking on air that felt too thick. The sailors screamed now. Some ran, but the deck stretched before them impossibly, as if distance rearranged itself. Others sprayed. One man laughed hysterically until he fainted. The medic tried to drag two injured crewmen, only for all three to dissolve into the same quiet erasure as the flare. The pod hummed louder. The ship bent further. The sea swallowed light itself, and then the Aurelia broke, not in half, not into debris. It folded metal curling inward like petals closing around a dying flower. The ocean rose higher, pulling every fragment, every bolt, every breath of air toward the pod's impossible glow. Holt grabbed the railing, refusing to let go, though the metal beneath his hands softened like warm wax. Stop. Holt shouted at the nameless force. Take me, not them. But the sea does not bargain. The glow expanded. The pod widened. One by one, the men were consumed, not falling, not drowning, vanishing, erased from existence. Holt held on until the deck bent vertically. He felt the pull at his legs, then his chest, then his thoughts. The last thing he saw before the light took him was the shape rising from the deep behind. The pod, something colossal, ancient, watching the dawn. The ocean looked innocent again, flat, glassy, and strangely beautiful. Anyone passing by would have assumed nothing existed beneath the surface except cold water and silence. But beneath that stillness lay a wound. The disappearance of the Aurelia sent a tremor through the world, not immediately, not explosively, but like a rumor that spread cell by cell through a body. The warship was gone, not sunk, not destroyed, gone. For the first 12 hours after its vanishing, the naval command insisted it was a communications blackout. Then a navigational detour, then an engine failure. By the time a second warship, the Marlin, was deployed to find it, the Whisper had already started among sailors on leave and dock workers in coastal towns. They spoke in low voices, as if the ocean itself might overhear. They're saying the sea took it. No wreckage? Impossible. A ship that size leaves bones behind. What do you think it saw out there, in that place where currents die? But the person who felt the disappearance most was someone who had never served a day at sea, Dara Holt, daughter of Captain Serin Holt, archaeologist. A mind sharpened by digging through ruins and forgotten texts, not by sailing. Yet she had inherited her father's instinct, the ability to sense a truth before the evidence formed around it. When command informed her that her father's ship was simply missing, she didn't cry, she didn't panic. She felt a cold clarity slide into her mind like a blade. You're lying, she said to the admiral who delivered the news. Dara, we're telling you everything we know. No. You're telling me everything you're allowed to say. It was in her father's last message sent hours before the Aurelia vanished that she found her first clue. The audio was scrambled, drenched in static, but one sentence cut through. If anything happens, look in the still water, a word she had never heard from her father before. But when she brought it up to naval intelligence, they shut her out. Classified waters, restricted charts, no civilian clearance. So she did what her father would have done. She broke the rules. She started with old maritime log scraps no one cared about anymore, records from sailors long dead. And patterns emerged quickly, too quickly to ignore. Ships going off course, unexplained disappearances, reports of soundless storms, descriptions of water that felt wrong. And then she found something else, an incident from 81 years earlier involving a vessel called the Calypso. Crew gone, ship intact, drifting without purpose, with metal warped inward as if grasped by enormous hands. The logs of the chief scientist aboard that ship were brief, frantic, almost unreadable. But one line made Dara stop breathing. We saw the pod. We saw the light. The ocean was not alone. Those words burned into her mind. And then came the knock on her door. A young man stood there, soaked from rain, wearing a uniform but no insignia. His eyes held the same haunted look she had seen in the old photographs of men who survived the Calypso incident. You're digging into something dangerous, he said. Good, she replied. Dangerous things leave trails. He stepped inside and shut the door behind him. My name is Lieutenant Samor Reyes, he said quietly. I was assigned to the Marlin search mission. We found something out there. What did you find? He swallowed. We didn't find the Aurelia, but we heard it. Dara felt her pulse spike. Explain. Reyes opened his bag and placed a small battery recording device on the table. At 0300 hours, he said, our sonar picked up a metallic distortion like a ship's hull bending. The Aurelia's hull can't be bending now. Not unless the ship is still out there, Dara whispered. He nodded. But that's not the worst part. Listen. He pressed play. Static filled the room, crackling like bones crushing under pressure. Then a sound rose, not natural, not mechanical. A low, resonant hum that felt alive. Dara's throat tightened. That's it, Reyes said. That's what made half our crew collapse. It felt like it was inside your skull. She remembered something else from her research, something buried in a handwritten note from a historian who studied ancient maritime myths. Do not listen to the humming sea. It remembers the ones it takes. Her mind raced. Myth or warning? Reyes continued, his voice trembling. We lost a man overboard. Swear to God he didn't fall. He faded like he was being erased. Dara stared at him, absorbing every word. You want answers, he said. I want them too. So here's the truth. He leaned in. The ocean is hiding something in still water. Someone high up knows it. Dara felt her world shift. Then we go there, she said. Reyes exhaled, almost laughing in disbelief. You're serious? My father is out there. And whatever erased his ship isn't finished. Reyes paced the room, torn between fear and duty. Then he stopped. There's a civilian research vessel leaving tomorrow for a sanctioned route. If we hack their coordinates, we can get close enough to slip towards still water without raising suspicion. And after we enter it, she asked. He stared at her with the resigned acceptance of a man who had already chosen his fate the moment he knocked on her door. After we enter it, he said quietly, we pray the ocean doesn't notice. But the ocean always notices. They departed 2 nights later under a moon that looked too pale, too watchful. The research vessel, Calderon, was old, slow, and harmless, exactly what they needed. Dara stood on the deck, the wind slicing cold lines across her face. She didn't fear drowning. She feared the silence. The kind she heard in that recording. The kind that swallowed the Aurelia whole. Race joined her. Once we cross the coordinates, things might get bad. We've already crossed the point of no return, she said. He half smiled. You sound like your father. Good, she replied. Then maybe I'll find him. For hours. The ocean behaved normally, rolling waves, the hiss of water against steel, gulls circling in lazy arcs. But at 2:18, everything changed. The waves flattened. The wind died. The temperature dropped. Reyes checked the radar. It's happening. Still water. Dara asked. He nodded. Then they heard it. Not loud, not immediate. A faint hum rising from beneath the hull like a heartbeat echoing through miles of water. Dara's stomach knotted as the familiar vibration crawled up her spine. The Calderon drifted forward as though the currents had turned to stone. Reyes whispered, we're here. Dara looked over the railing. The water below didn't reflect the moon. It reflected nothing. It was not black. It was void, like someone had cut a hole into the world. And then the hum deepened. Reyes grabbed her arm. Do you hear that? But Dara wasn't listening to him. She was listening to the second sound hidden beneath the hum. A voice, not human, not singular. A layered chorus of distant echoes rising from impossible depths. She closed her eyes. And that's when she heard her father. Dara turned back. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She spun toward Reyes. He's alive. Reyes paled. How do you know? Because the ocean just told me. The hum intensified. The void beneath them shimmered. And something began to rise. Not the pod. Not yet. Something older. Something watching. Something that remembered the Aurelia. Reyes stepped back in terror, but Dara stepped forward. The water beneath the Calderon swirled unnaturally, forming shapes that no human mind should recognize. Light flickered along the surface, though the moon had vanished behind clouds. Dara's pulse raced, yet she felt no fear, only a certainty that this was her father's last message coming through the ocean itself. Reyes clutched the railing, eyes wide as shadows stretched beneath the waves like arms reaching for them. We shouldn't be here, he whispered. Whatever this is, it's beyond us. Dara shook her head. We're already here. There's no going back. The hum of the water evolved into a rhythm. Dara realized it matched the vibrations she remembered from the Aurelia's last transmission. It was not just a sound, it was intelligence. It pulsed in patterns, like the ocean itself was thinking, reacting. The void beneath the Calderon began to glow faintly, revealing a faint outline of a structure beneath the waves. Metallic, organic, impossible to tell. It was vast, immense, and it exuded an authority no living being could withstand. Then the pod appeared, not hovering above the water. This time it rose slowly from the depths, silent, gleaming as if it had been waiting for her. Dara felt it like a magnetic pull in her chest, tugging her forward even as her mind screamed to resist. The hum intensified, vibrating inside every bone in her body. She could see fragments of her father in her mind, his last command, his final warning. "Dad," she whispered, voice trembling. The pod opened, and the glow inside enveloped them, time fractured. For a moment, she could see multiple timelines at once, the Aurelia disappearing, her father reaching for her hand from the void, the world above continuing unaware. And then she understood. The ocean had a memory. It recorded what had happened and what must happen. It had erased the Aurelia, not to destroy but to protect something. A presence older than humanity, older than recorded history, had been waiting beneath the currents. The pod was the interface, the ocean, the guardian, and her father had been absorbed to witness, to report, to guide. Reyes grabbed her arm, panic rising. "We can't." But Dara stepped forward, the glow enveloped her. The hum became a voice, speaking directly into her consciousness. "Do not fear. You are the bridge." Images of her father appeared. He was not dead, not fully. The ocean had suspended him between dimensions, between existence and erasure. He reached toward her, his hand stretched through the light, lips forming words she could not hear, but her heart understood. Follow, learn, complete. The cauldron shook violently. Waves rose impossibly high, then dropped instantly. Crew members clutched anything they could, screaming, but Dara focused only on the pod. It moved closer to the void, then paused as if testing her resolve. She stepped onto the deck's edge. The pull was irresistible, and before Reyes could stop her, she felt herself lifted, suspended between the ship and the glowing aperture. Her mind expanded. She could see the Aurelia, every bolt, every seam, every terrified, brave crew member folding into the ocean's memory. She could feel her father's thoughts. "Do not grieve. What is gone is preserved. What is lost teaches the living." The pod pulsed again, and she understood that the ocean did not take life, it transformed it. The erased were not gone. They were witnesses, guardians of a secret humanity was not ready to face. Reyes shouted, but his voice was distant. He reached out, and she reached back. For a fleeting moment, their hands touched. Then the glow surged. Dara felt herself drawn into the pod's interior, a space impossible to describe. She saw her father in the center, surrounded by forms like liquid metal, suspended in glowing water. He smiled. No words were needed. The ocean had chosen her to see, to carry the memory, to ensure the Aurelia's sacrifice was not forgotten. Time snapped back. She stood on the deck again. The pod receded into the depths, and the void beneath the cauldron vanished. The waves normalized. The ocean appeared calm, but Dara knew it had changed forever. She glanced at Reyes, who looked at her with a mixture of awe and disbelief. We need to report this," he said, voice shaking. "No," Dara replied. "They wouldn't understand. This is bigger than reports, bigger than charts or governments. The Aurelia isn't lost, it's preserved. Story, it's ours to remember, and mine to continue." The cauldron turned homeward. The crew murmured among themselves, but no one could explain the strange serenity that had settled over Dara. She felt her father's presence, the ocean's watchful eyes, and the knowledge that what had been erased had not truly vanished. Months later, Dara would publish her journal not as a record of disaster, but as a testament to endurance, mystery, and the unseen forces shaping human destiny. Scholars would debate her words, sailors would whisper them, and legends of the Stillwater corridor would spread. Yet, only she and a few others knew the truth. The ocean remembers, it protects, and sometimes it erases to teach humanity the scale of what lies beyond comprehension. The story of the Aurelia ended not with destruction, but with awakening. Humanity had glimpsed something eternal, something older than war, older than steel, older than the sky itself. And in that moment, Dara understood that the sea was not an enemy, it was a keeper of stories, a guardian of truth, and a teacher of patience. The Aurelia was erased in open water, but its memory lived. Its crew existed somewhere between worlds, waiting for the day when humanity would be ready. And the ocean waited too, watching, breathing, silent yet eternal, knowing that some mysteries must remain to guide those who dare to seek them. The world would never forget the vanishing of the Aurelia, and those who listened carefully could still hear its hum beneath the waves, a reminder that some endings are beginnings in disguise, and some disappearances carry the weight of eternity.